Tom, thanks so much for pulling this all together. And kind of what was the inspiration, the aha moment?
Well, I guess I'm not going to take all the credit for it. I guess Scott Kinberg was influential on it. Also, him and I would chat through our baseball. He would always come and cover our Southwestern games. So he grew up next to George Parsons, who played for Stravatos Grill at the time, and as a little guy growing up, he came to a lot of the games and just couldn't believe the fast pitch. So we just reminisced about it and how I got involved with it. I had 3 older brothers that were very involved with it. So I said, wait, why not just get the guys together and have a fast pitch softball reunion, So.
What's bring me into your arc. You have 3 brothers, their names, and how were they involved?
Okay, Barry's the oldest, and he was on the Caesar House initially. Tim was the manager coach of the Caesar House team, and Brian, my in-between brother, or next brother up in age from me, he was the right fielder, and at the time I was just 11, 12 years old coming into it, going to all these games, the tournaments. I'd go with one of the brothers, and I was the bat boy. So I had the honor and the privilege for me to be there and witness all these great athletes, and it was just phenomenal just to be there and just to witness that, and more so these 2 teams, Stravatos and Caesar House, were the powerhouses of the area, and they would have an early game and one late game under the lights at Danielson, and anytime the Caesar and Stravatos would do battle under the lights, there'd be 500 to 1,000 people at Danielson Stadium to witness these athletes. You're looking at 1-0, 2-1 games, and it was just Adam Zach that averaged 17 strikeouts for Stravatos, and then you had Ron Fredris, the red man for Caesar House, and he was those 2 would do battle, and it was just phenomenal. You'd see, with all these great athletes that were on both these teams.
So, talk a little bit about it. Your brother Tim was the manager. Was he the manager in the beginning?
Yes, he was.
So what was the impetus, the aha moment, were they drinking a beer at the Caesar House one day with the Woodfields and decide, let's do it?
Well, I guess between the Woodfields and the Browns, you had 3/4 of a team already made up, and like I said, I was just probably when the fast pitch really initiated and really got going in the Jamestown area, I got to say was the mid-'60s, and then it pretty much ended with around 1975. So I graduated in 1973, and I ended up playing. I did play in a couple years, and so I did face Adam Zach. But I was like many others that didn't get a hit off him. So I fouled a few off, but but the fast pitch in general in the area it got to be, Jamestown hosted a major, I believe it was mid-July, they had a major fast pitch tournament. And you could just rest assured that Caesar House and Stravatos, one of those 2 teams or both would face each other in the final game, and it was just they would get teams for coming in here from Buffalo area, Erie, Warren area, Corey, Meadville. So it was just a great thing to, I guess, for me to be the bat boy and have a front row seat to witness these guys that played.
But you had the front row seat. Give me the lineup of Caesar House.
Okay, the early Caesar House consisted of My brother Barry, he was probably played the outfield at that time, along with Brian. Tim was the manager coach, but the few of the scorebooks that we have acquired from late '60, early '70, Tim did play second base, and sometimes he did pitch. As I was looking through there, I was surprised. You had Terry Woodfield Baggs, arguably one of the best catchers in the area. He was catching for Fredris and Joe DeMayo. Randy Shenefield, this is Caesar House squad now. He had Randy Shenefield at third base. Ken Martin, the Husker, was at shortstop. Phenomenal player. And second base, you had a few different players. Jake Jacobson, Denny McCain, that I can recall. Ev Matlock, they called him Youngin. He was probably only like 5'6", maybe 5'7" at the most. He could stretch out big time and make some phenomenal plays.
First base.
At first base, correct. And then Brian pretty much had anchored down right field. Dan Harnish, we nicknamed him Scooter. He was like lightning. He was very fast. Had a cannon for an arm. He played center. In left field, Bob Schmidt came on. The later Caesar House, I think there was a gentleman, Tom Engdahl. I don't know if he was from the Mayville area. But Tim always had a knack of getting these players, any position he felt that was, needed brushed up, touched up, or could do better at. Tim would pretty much find them. And then speaking of the tournaments, they'd pick up another pitcher that played in the Olean, Bradford area. His name was Tommy Irons. They nicknamed him the Iron Man. And he was very dominant. At 40 feet away, the guy was 6'7", throwing BBs. Phenomenal. Jim Adamczak, I've had different guys that are going to be here today. They indicated that Adamczak was just as good as Eddie Feiner, who arguably probably one of the best fast pitch pitchers in the nation, with the king in his court. And I remember I was right in the dugout at Russ Dietrich Park when they actually the Caesar House team beat the Eddie Feiner, and so that was there's a lot of great feats that happened.
Remember this? Can you do the Stravatos lineup?
Stravatos, which obviously Jim Adamczak was on the hill. You had Pete. I think it was Ronnie Neubauer was catching. Petey Neubauer, his brother, I believe they were twins. He was at first base. You had George Parsons, I think, anchored second. Jim Hannon, and I believe it was at shortstop. And third base in the later year, my brother Barry ended up, he worked with Jim Adamczak and UPS. Okay. And Jim got him to come over, and my brother Barry played third base for Stravatos in the latter year. But in the early year, he was with the house. So it was neat having, 3-year brothers, go and play. And then the Woodfields had, Baggs and Dick Woodfield in the earlier year was with the house. So it was really a close.
Going back to Stravatos for a second, they had a couple of lefties. Lefty Spets?
Lefty Spets, that's correct. I'm not sure, I can't recollect the position. And I know their center fielder was Lefty Gustafson. And Lefty was a phenomenal player. He was defensively phenomenal, and he was a good stick. Very good hitter.
Steve Paschal?
Steve Paschal. That's correct. And Steve was right there too. He might have been anchoring the third base, before my brother came into the loop. But
Do you remember? I mean, I do. As a kid, I'm 72 years old, so I remember occasionally when they played at Allen Park, which was unbelievable to have those two teams play early in the season, never at the end. There, we'd go and you knew the schedule. You knew when those two teams were playing. Internally, did your brother kind of get juiced up when Tim saying, "Hey guys, tonight's the night. Tonight's the night." Did you remember any conversation like that?
Well, anytime, when the Post Journal, really at that time, they did a superb job. They would put the lineups in and the schedules in the paper, so it would give you the heads up. But the first time that Stravatos played Caesar House was on a Sunday morning at Jones and Gifford 1. And Caesar House did win that game. I believe it was 2-1. It was a 1-run difference there. And the people that came on a Sunday morning for that, they had cars lined up on Jones and Gifford from basically the Celeron line all the way down to the Celeron Village line on both sides of the road, and at the Blacktop plant right there, they let the people were parked in there, and it was just they just figured that they had to witness this game, and lo and behold, Donnie C., who is a sponsor of the Caesar House, he I guess had with I believe Mike Scarry, who was the owner of Stravatos. So apparently there was some money on the line on that game. No one ever did find out the amount, but yes, Caesar House did become or was victorious for that.
Was there sort of an image where Caesar House to me was, aside from Kenny Martin, really younger guys? I mean, younger than the more seasoned veteran Stravatos. Now that may have been more a young person's perception, but it seemed that way.
Yeah, I guess at my age at that time, I didn't really look at that. It was just the caliber of plays and the players that that you were watching these guys make plays that you would just shake your head at, and how'd he do that? It was just the talent level for both squads there was phenomenal, really was.
Now, we always focus in on those two teams, but it was a league. Who were some of the other teams in the league? Do you recall?
I guess the later years, as you look, we have different articles, and there's some teams, the early of the social league. There was just one division, might have been maybe 10 teams within that division. I know the War Vets here had a team. Lakewood Rod and Gun had a really good team. It was a Dave Kingsley, I remember, that played for them, was, very good player. But when later on, as it grew, we had more pitchers, and there was they ended up being 16 teams. There was 8 in each division. There was an A division and a B division. So you'd play your division twice, and then the other division you'd only play once. And
usually it was 2 games a week, wasn't it?
Yeah, Mondays and Thursdays.
There we go.
And you would play, the full slate at Bergman Park, and then with one game under the lights. And every team pretty much, would play a game under the lights and experience it. And then obviously Jones and Gifford, had their the 3 fields, or actually 2. I think going at that time, so that's where the bulk of them were played.
Yeah. In the earlier days, it was Allen Park because I grew up there, but I don't know if
correct.
Kind of went off by the wayside. And ultimately, it was sort of a 10-year time period, wasn't it?
Basically, yeah. I would really, in all honesty, say from 65 to 75. And as in 75, there was only 6 teams left in the fast pitch in Jamestown area.
Why was there?
Because all the pitchers, they were, a lot of them were, a couple of them had passed away, moved out of town. Just teams lost really quality pitchers, and so you didn't have any pitchers that could support any team. So that, with that being said, the teams pretty much just dwindled down to 6, and then from the next year, modified, really came into the spotlight, and so all these guys that were playing fast pitch obviously played modified, and there were some pretty good modified pitchers too. Bob Winterburn, for one, he came up. He was pitching modified down in Warren, and down in that league before he moved up or got back up here to pitch modified. But obviously Tim's team, the old Caesar House team became Heinz Vending at one time. And I think there was another sponsor that they played under, and then obviously Jock Shop, a lot of them. Terry Woodfield, my brother Brian, Harnish, Bobby Schmidt. That bunch went into Joe DeMail. They went into playing with the Jock Shop. Who Terry Woodfield, John Woodfield came into the spotlight there, and they were phenomenal. I mean, you talk about 10 players that fielded a team. They were solid.
And that was all modified, though, right?
That was correct. That was modified.
That's essentially, for those on the camera, instead of the windmill, you're now throwing essentially underhand.
Yeah, your underhand. Everything is what you could get on it velocity-wise, underhand. I know Jim Brooks was a very good pitcher for the Jock Shop. Bob Winterburn and myself for Heinz Vending, we would go to tournaments, Corey, Meadville, Warren, and we just would pitch every other game. And the best part of that for me personally was I got to play with Kenny Martin and his 2 sons. It was a great thing to, especially to play with Kenny. You just couldn't imagine. There were guys that were afraid, how you warm up at the beginning of the game. You get a partner and you play catch and you warm up, and about after 8 pitches, my hand was like raw beefsteak catching for Kenny Martin. And I knew why guys didn't want to warm up with Kenny, because, Kenny had a very strong arm, crazy strong.
So fluid, my gosh.
At 6'4", to watch him, cover the shortstop, he robbed so many guys out of base hits. That was phenomenal. And then you have Ev Matlock over there just stretching out, doing a full split basically at first base. It was just phenomenal to watch him. And Randy Shenefield, he anchored third down. He was great. It was just a great thing at that time for me to witness and be a part of it from a bat boy perspective.
Well, and then more than that. And so you pull this all together because it's an inspiration. It's Tom Brown's the inspiration for tonight. And
well,
I look forward to it.
Well, I appreciate you coming and getting an interview with these guys, and you can have them tell you a lot of the key moments and the key things in their careers. It was. People just don't realize how big fast pitch was in Jamestown. They really don't. So it's just something that Scott Kinberg can write up a nice article with the interviewing of these guys, and you pay tribute to their just how great they were, and we got articles over here, pictures. Of the teams, and it was just a very family-oriented team that mainly the Caesar House, with the Browns, Woodfields, the Martins. It was almost like they packed if they were going to McKeesport, wherever they were going for a tournament, and they basically packed their suitcases and coolers and, round up the kids, and away they would go for the whole weekend. And it was a great venue for everybody, actually. A lot of friendships were made.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate this.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you, Greg.